I'm Amy Bishop, and with me is co host Mike Thomas. This program is part of an educational series through the St. Clair County Speak Youth Coalition and is funded in part by Region 10 in partnership with the St. Clair County Health Department and local organizations in the Blue Water area. Today's topic will be on how to handle the challenges of doing school from home. Not many people may think of it this way, but success at school is a key factor in living a substance free life. Mike and I were just talking not too long ago about some of the worries and pressures that come from class on Zoom and other formats. Mike, what have been some issues you've seen with your own kids now that they're doing school at home?
There's little things that I never would have thought of from my end that are actually seemingly big to them. Like, for example, with my son going to high school right now, I never would have thought that even though you're sitting in class and everybody sees you, that seeing yourself on a screen would be such an issue. But it's almost like with some of the youth that I've talked with, especially my own children, that fear of rejection for people seeing you or seeing your work on screen in some cases is actually more stressful than the fear of actually failing a class. And so there's times where missing assignments and other things pop up. And if I show this stuff, oh my goodness, I'm going to look like this. And so don't want my face on screen. And then they're getting marked absent because nobody knows they're on because they don't want to show their face because they're afraid of what they look like when they see themselves on the other side. Little things like that. How about you, Amy? What have been some of the issues you've seen?
Well, actually, what you mentioned is not at all what I personally would have thought of. And, I guess it depends on each individual parent and child. My problem's a little bit different. My concern is the lack of social interaction. I'm very social. I'm a very social person myself, and so is my son. And like I said, he's 12. So last year he was in sixth grade. This year he's in seventh. And he last year he started like really just making a bunch of really good friends
Yep.
and just kind of branching out that way. And as soon as he made those relationships, it seemed like, he was cut off from everyone. And so after being on remote learning for some time, he just seemed to be very withdrawn. He hung out in his room a lot. And I honestly think that he kind of glazed over with some of the Zoom sessions because he's a more hands on kid. He likes that interaction. And so for him, it was difficult to pay attention. He has some attention difficulties anyway. And so that led to, of course, his grades going down. And that led to him being more frustrated with himself, more emotional. He was anxious about it, because obviously now the school and teachers and faculty will email the parents. I think that communication is actually improved for parent teacher communication, but he was anxious about what I was going to find out. He was disappointed in himself. And I actually saw a lot of depression come out in him to the point where I seriously considered getting him in to see a counselor. And so that was really upsetting because he's just such a happy, go lucky kind of kid. And he loved he's in band, and band depends on, that interaction and playing together. And it really threw him for a loop.
Right. I can relate with that as well too. It's like, Amy, did you ever read the book, The Five Love Languages?
I am familiar with them. I've never read them. I've heard about them. I've had like overviews of it. Yeah.
Sure. Like, having read that, like, one of the things they point out, quality time or physical touch are two things that are really talked about as specific languages that are in that book. And hard part is those are two things that right now are difficult under these circumstances. I'm a hugger. Sounds weird, but like, and so is my youngest. So her and I, like, the being around friends, high five and hugging. Right now, it's almost taboo to do that because if you do, you might get germs or something. And so, it's valid. I mean, there's a lot of people. There's some real significant issues going on with COVID and other things that are preventing us from doing that. But at the same time, you've got these other pieces that are missing. I mean, we are creatures of habit, and here we are now isolating, and children are now being at home long periods of time. Sometimes, like, if it's the case with my family, my wife and I work, so they're at home doing these things. So you've got that lack of connection from the friends. How to deal with the stress of all this, seeing your mom and dad frustrated and anxious because of what's going on, and that they pick up on that as well too. but also time management, working with children. Having that teacher there or having that parent doing that is really helpful. And I know with two of mine with dealing with IEPs and special needs, not having that extra teacher, that support in the classroom, they're really struggling a lot.
I
So
bet.
those are some of the little things I'm seeing. Is there anything else you're picking up on or as you talk to other parents about, Amy?
Well, I really appreciate what you said. Exactly. I think that you're helping me right now because I feel like a fish out of water. I'm an interactive, kind of huggy, kind of high five it person as well. And so missing out on that is tough. But you mentioned like parents being away. Well, it's a long day for us, sure, but we figure our kids are in school. But what our kids are not used to is that long day without mom and dad
Right.
and being disconnected from maybe an adult that's just right there. They had a teacher that they could ask a question to, or if they have a personal problem, or maybe see a counselor, or like you said, get that extra help. And now they don't have those extra resources. So we need to really be there for our children and come up with some ways to help reduce some of that stress so that they can be successful until we get through this tough time for sure. And I'll tell you, parent to parent, I think all of us maybe have found a few things. And I just love this series because we can share what maybe some of the solutions are and help other parents as well. So yeah, I've heard so many things, and I'm just hoping that we can give some of those solutions. Do you have anything, Mike?
Yeah, there's a couple things that I think are practical ideas that we can use to help through this. And if you guys have anything as well, too, please comment. We have you have the opportunity to comment in the section below in the feed. You can also go to speak at stclaircounty.org. Send us some emails. We're going to actually start featuring individual questions at the ends of these segments. And when we do that, we'd like to get your feedback. If you have personal questions, we'd love to have you featured in the segment. But for right now, just a couple things off the top of my head. First and foremost is things that we can do when we get home to take a little bit away from the screen time and finding other activities we can do. Lately, we've been bringing back board games and card games. As silly as that sounds, I remember growing up doing things like that, whether it's Trivial Pursuit or Outburst or Pictionary, games like that. Now we've got Apples to Apples and other things. It's really fun, even if it's just Monopoly or chess or other standard board games that have been around for a long time. Doing things like that with our children, whether we're interacting with them individually and not through screens. They spend all day doing that now. And I've been taught so many different things in the past with ADHD, especially about how too much screen time can be a bad thing. When we're on screen all day and then we're playing with video games, doing these things, it's skyrocketing how much time they are on a computer. So come up with other activities that you can do with your children for that are fun, but also at the same time, be engaged with their schoolwork. That's the other thing. Like, how was your day? Not just simple questions, have a good day. Get detailed. What was your favorite subject today? What was that favorite topic that you had today? Get really deep with it. Sometimes we get superficial and just that scripted, hey, how was your day? And the truth of the matter is maybe they want a little bit more. And if you want the scripted, I don't know, that's a good way of doing it. But if you want detail, get detail in your questions. Open-ended questions give you answers. Closed-ended questions like yes or no questions, that's what you're going to get. Or my favorite, I don't know. Sorry, my least favorite, but
It's the standard answer of
yeah,
every scene, right?
yeah. And I think if we're a little less standard with our response, we'll get a little less standard with the answers we get. So, Amy, what about you? What are some things that you've been working on with your son?
Well, I will tell you, we started, you talk about communicating and how important that is. We started something, actually, I, I, I dragged it back out of the closet, so to speak. I used to do this with my older kids as well and just kind of got away from it. But we do something that I believe I saw in a movie and I thought it was really great to ask. We call it high-low. So at dinner, you share the highlight of your day and then also your low point of the day. And it allows something positive and you can celebrate, or you can talk about a problem or issue that your child has had throughout the day. So, and if you keep that consistent and do that daily, you can get on top of issues early. Another thing that we do actually, and I got away from it, I've been busy at work like every parent, right? And so what do you cut are these kind of family building blocks from your life and focus on just getting through the day and keeping up your household duties. But we reinstated our walk and talk, because I think that a lot of students aren't getting outside a lot. And I know my child, like I said, he's a hands-on kid. And so when they're in that room all day and they don't have an opportunity even to like go walk home or get on the bus to go home, they really are shut in. And that's just a bad recipe for a lot of isolation and depression feelings. So that walk and talk helps just talk out some of the issues too and feelings that our students are having. And just to talk to somebody and get some fresh air and maybe some sunshine really does help the mood a lot. Our brains need sunshine, our lungs need that fresh air, and just somebody to talk to, if even if it's just about a bunch of nothing. It's knowing that that person is there spending time just with them. They have your individual time. And the other thing is take a car ride. My son said we went, I don't know where we went, just for a drive up the lake or something, stopped at a park, and it was no big deal to me, but it was grand to him. He said, finally to get out of this house. So I think that hanging out in a dark bedroom and being secluded and secluding yourself even more is just detrimental. So those little things like you talked about, game playing and talking and getting outside or going somewhere, it doesn't have to be to a store.
Yeah.
It can, that's, we don't want to do that right now, but getting outside and in our community, that's what I've done. And if you run into trouble, if your kid isn't acting like they usually do, you have a real big change in behavior or mood, they stop eating or they're eating a lot, they have a change in their eating habits, if they're not sleeping or they're sleeping too much. Some of these signs are big signs of depression, and it's okay to ask for help if you get into trouble that way too. Sometimes it's time to call in for backup, right?
Right.
And that's why later we're going to list some of those resources that we have in our very own community where you can reach out for help for your student.
Yeah, it's important you're saying that, Amy, because the truth of the matter is it's scary for all of us. We just found out about a year ago that there's a disease that's out there that's causing some harm for some folks. And look, I can, the amount of hype that's in the media about it, like just how scary it is, coupled with every other month there's a new change with what we can and can't do. That inconsistency is not only taxing on us, it's taxing on our children, because uncertainty really drives a lot of that fear and stress and that depression as well too. And so when I see youth doing that all these that like what you were saying, talking with them is huge, but listening to understand. We as adults have a bigger understanding in many cases of what's going on in the world, and as our children, especially in their teen years, are developing where they fit in society and what their part is. It's so important that we try as much as possible to listen to where they're coming from, to understand, because they may be speaking to us specifically what's going on, but in ways, unless you really listen to try to understand where they're coming from, really might not get those points. And if it gets to the point where it's that serious and the walks aren't working and the exercise isn't working and the long car drives aren't working, probably time, if you need to talk with some professional help. There's a variety of services that are out there, be it their guidance counselor or professional counseling, because as bad as it's been, I mean, there was a significant number of people during those 2 months where we were really off in March through May, substantially overdosing or taking their own lives. And it's scary. And our children are vulnerable to a lot of things, but also too, for yourself, is to make sure you get your help. Too often parents will self-medicate and deal with things their own way, whether it's, that wine after work every day, or medicine, or like drinking every cup of coffee in sight. I know I talk with coffee drinkers. They're like, oh, yeah, I gotta have my coffee first thing. When we habituate like that, we teach our children that that's how you cope with stress. And when you do that with a developing mind, like we talked about in the last segment, that really sets them up for realizing that they need something to deal with those issues, instead of talking and connecting and doing the things that naturally we're gifted with doing when we have these opportunities. So make sure you're not self-medicating or encouraging your children to take more and more things, so that way they do as well. It's scary to watch it, but we're taught so much that, you know, take 2 of these and call me in the morning. And the truth is that's a setup for a lot of people for long-term thinking that they have to use drugs and alcohol in order to cope. And that's when people get into a lot of trouble. And so from a professional end of it, find other ways to cope yourselves so you model that behavior for your children.
Absolutely, Mike. I'm really glad that you shared that. Absolutely. And what will happen in the long run and is it will be better for both parent and child. And if you can't cope that way in a healthy way and model that good behavior, then it may be time to talk to somebody for sure.
Absolutely. Well, guys, it's about time to wrap up. So we hope that this has been helpful for you. And we'd love to have you keep joining on with us. Next time, we're going to be on January 6th, around 6 o'clock. We're going to be looking specifically at some of the harmful effects of substances. So marijuana, alcohol, and tobacco, but some of the other things that are out there right now that are as dangerous or worse in some ways for your children. And so we'd love it if you would just keep watching the series. We're here on Facebook, but you can also follow Speak on Instagram as well, too. And again, it's January 6th will be our next segment. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and we'll talk with you soon. Happy New Year.